Wow. That was my initial reaction when I first started playing the original Just Cause here. This game is crazy good. It's crazy impressive that they managed to construct a world this large with visuals this nice, all while having the core destruction and mayhem we've come to know of the Just Cause series. And all of this before the Xbox 360 turned a year old in 2006. It's insane. Now, I got into the Just Cause series with Just Cause 2, and I distinctly remember playing that game. In fact, I reviewed it here on the channel for you guys when it was new, but Just Cause 2, to me, was such a breath of fresh air at the time. It surprised me in many ways, and while I never completed the story of the game, it was one that I held and still hold in high regard as being a game that I simply lost myself playing in. I spent tons of hours just flying around and causing chaos, and at the time I had my stepbrother who oversaw me playing the game. He actually came into the room and sat down with me and started just wreaking havoc, and we started taking turns about what we could destroy and stuff. It was a wonderful time, much simpler time. And that being said, when I first started game collecting, I decided to pick up the very first Just Cause here, and I wanted to see where the roots of the series began, and I didn't really know what to expect. Now, at first glance, I actually thought that we were getting a completely different character, not realizing that all of these games are connected. But no, this is actually the same character, Rico Rodriguez, from the other Just Cause games. It's a bit funny here because in this game particularly, he looks completely different, almost to the point of being unrecognizable to the later iterations that they had of him. And you can see they really changed his character model up in the later games, and I think they also changed his voice actor as well. But yeah, through and through, this is the same guy as in the later entries. It's just that they gave him a much more distinctive look in the newer games. So what's happening here in the original Just Cause? Well, this game's actually pretty awesome. I actually caught myself laughing pretty well at some of these jokes in the game. It's very much a game of the era, so you get this sort of cheesy plot that's a sort of satirical approach to the spy thriller genre. Think like James Bond or something similar. And you have these really eccentric characters, and you're being bossed around by the agency, who's more or less the CIA in this game. Your companions in this game, well, they don't really do anything. Your field operatives basically act like they're on vacation the entire time and send you to do their dirty work. And the plot basically involves you trying to ignite a revolution as America is supplying the rebels with combat assistance through the guise of your character manipulating the political environment. You drop into this island, this beautiful, substantial place. It's called San Espirito, and it looks sort of a cross between Vietnam and Venezuela, so you can expect these lush tropical jungles, small shanty towns, and even some of the more modern city districts here. As the game starts, it basically opens up immediately after playing and gives you the opportunity to explore whatever and whenever you want. Now, the Just Cause series is known for its sprawling worlds, but we've seen how, as time and technology progresses, the worlds just get larger and larger. But the sheer fact that they built a game world this large, this open, with this much freedom, when the 360 wasn't even on the market for a full year, it's astounding. I couldn't believe myself when I first started playing just how much of a technical marvel this game is. It is absolutely comparable to any modern open world game today, and it will take you easily into the 30+ hour range if you were to make an effort and collect most of the stuff in here. This game is filled with a ton of side content and collectibles. There's just no shortage of things to do here. I would imagine that being a kid and actually getting this game, it must have felt like the greatest gift in the world because you could just endlessly find things to do. But that being said, not all of it is really interesting or even worthwhile by today's standards. There's sort of this kind of checkbox structure to a lot of the missions in this game. So I actually opted to just do the story, and any of the side missions that I just so happened to have come across, I actually did, but I didn't waste my time too much with the secondary stuff. Despite all of that, a mostly straight story run took me just over 10 hours to complete, so it's a pretty digestible length when considering the large landscape and the mission list in this game, and it doesn't overstay its welcome either. The main story, while not award-worthy, is fun and easy to follow through, and the story missions do have some pretty fun stuff within them. You will get access to a lot of high-tech gadgets, vehicles, and the final mission in this game is just ridiculous. You can't help but smile the entire way through. It's just a great time, and I think that it's a game that works with you depending on how long you want it to last. It won't take up too much of your time unless you really want it to, and it's very adaptable in that regard. And of course, let's take a look at the Just Cause box art on Xbox 360. I like the front cover for this one. It very much looks like a propaganda piece. So it's pretty cool, and I like the color scheme, and yeah. And then we have a look at the spine here, which has the Just Cause logo on there. Pretty cool. And then on the back, we have all this information. 1 revolution to ignite, 250,000 acres to explore, and that's not even an understatement. It's really that large. Now, I don't have a manual for this game, but I do have a nice condition disc, which is the most important here and good for preservation. So runs perfectly fine, and the Series X picked it up without any issues. So cool look at the box art for Just Cause. So let's talk a little bit about the visuals here. Now, this game is running on the Xbox Series X via backwards compatibility. The Series X is doing nothing in terms of improving the image quality or the base frame rate. So this is still the standard Xbox 360 presentation running at 720p and 30 frames per second. The Series X does, though, inject auto HDR here, which is one of the better use cases for this software, as the color palette in this game and the overall game world just feel right at home in lavish, high dynamic range detail. But I was shocked that this level of visual quality was achieved in a world like this, and in the 360's first year of games lineup. Now today you can pick apart certain elements like the character models. They went with a much more stylized, sort of cartoony look compared to something realistic. But there are a lot of gorgeous effects in here that just scream next gen at you. What's more impressive is this game looks this advanced and still remains a cross-generation title as well. You can get this on the original Xbox and the PS2, and it almost looks like a completely different game on those platforms comparatively. The 360 adds volumetric lighting, cinematic camera and object-based motion blur, water caustics, HDR lighting, dynamic particles, and smoke effects. And the textures in this game look great with a good variety of properties. Like, I was running through this jungle and you have just the light shafts piercing through the trees above you, and then the texture of wet mud below your feet kicking up particles as you run across it. All of this, and you still get a very respectable draw distance with plenty of foliage. And the water, oh my god, look at the water. They even simulated the difference in algae growth. Like, you can see this light green coloring in the deep, deep ocean, and the water is clear as crystal, and you can even dive into it. You have the waves crashing up on the shore, presenting this foamy-like texture as well when they do so. As you can tell, I am in complete shock here. This has to be easily one of the most beautifully accomplished games I've seen from these first initial releases of the 7th generation. Now, as some of you know, when I first decided to start playing my collection, I've been playing all these games in release date order, which is why you haven't seen a lot of PS3 reminiscing videos as of late, but that is going to be changing very soon. But when you do that, you get to see how the visuals of games sort of matured over the life cycle of the console. And when you go from playing The Godfather, the game, to this, it's just a complete shock that graphical quality of this like was achieved this early, this quickly. So what's next? How about an explosive and fun soundtrack, one that feels like an 80s action movie on steroids? I mean, from a presentation quality, it's all here. You got music that charms, explosive over-the-top action, and a gorgeous large island to explore. There's really not much more you could want, to be honest. But control-wise, you could wish for something a little bit more here. Now, this game is more than playable, but the gunplay feels a bit clunky and just not as well realized as I would have liked. Now, we have to keep in mind that over-the-shoulder third-person shooter games were just starting to mature in this phase, so there was a lot to figure out when it came to how these things should play out. The combat, for one, is actually pretty easy, to be honest. I found myself taking a submachine gun and quite literally running around and using the game's auto lock-on feature to just mow down enemies instantly. I could probably count on one hand the amount of times I actually died in this game, and this isn't on like an easy difficulty or anything, but it's just the nature of how the combat is played in this game. It plays more like a running gunner, and I guess you would have had to have played the other Just Causes to kind of get a similar idea to what I'm referring to, but it's just a little less refined here. Rico's animations are also somewhat lacking. The way he runs, he looks like he's trying hard not to trip over something, but I guess it adds to the game's charm. So Just Cause is a technical showpiece of what the next generation could bring us at the time. And it's also an experience that is a fun take on the action spy thriller genre. Vehicles, boats, jets, they're all here, and while it's not as crazy explosive and destructible as what would be introduced in Just Cause 2 later on, it's still a really fun time, and because of how straightforward everything is when it comes to the game, I was able to complete this one from beginning to end, making it the only Just Cause game that I actually completed the story for. But I do have a brand new sealed copy of Just Cause 2 waiting for me on my shelf that I will need to re-review here on the channel for you guys. But until then, please let me know if you guys played the first Just Cause. I'm curious to hear, for those of you who had played it back when it was new, what was the experience like back then? I can only imagine. But in any case, Just Cause is still a great time, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next Reminiscing video. Thank you for watching, and have a good one.